You are listening to the I Choose My Best Life podcast with Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith, a show that is dedicated to helping you live fully, love boldly, and rest intentionally. For additional resources, visit ichoosemybestlife.com.
If you are feeling overwhelmed and in need of a break, I want to invite you on an experience like no other. This is our very first Rest and Renew cruise. It is happening January 16th through the 20th, 2025, aboard a luxurious, beautiful ship with Royal Caribbean. Imagine yourself sailing through turquoise waters with nothing but relaxation on the schedule. This isn't just a vacation. This is a water-bound rest retreat where you get an opportunity to reclaim your peace, enjoy worship sessions, inspiring workshops, and the delicious cuisine and locations that you'll experience on our adventure together. You get to indulge in some restorative activities based on the type of rest that you personally need to restore your body, mind, and spirit. Spaces are limited, so make sure you book your cabin now. You get the opportunity to choose if you want to have a private room or if you want to have a double room and share with your friends. We have all of this set up within our online system so you can secure your spot today before we close down registration on September 1st, 2024. So to get signed up, check out the link that is over in the show notes. And I can't wait to see you on the Rest and Renew cruise. Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Saundra, and you're listening to I Choose My Best Life. Today, I have with me Kim Korte, and we are going to be discussing what does it mean to have a flavor of your emotions. We're going to dive deep into this topic. I love all things related to emotional well-being and emotional resilience. And so I think this topic is going to be one that is going to be really interesting. And I want to start, Kim, by just giving you a chance to share a little bit about your background before we dive in.
Hello, and thank you for having me. My background, at least as it's related to what we're talking about today, is experience. It's an emotional pain that was like the topper. Like I'd been through a lot in my life, and I was just like, okay, I can't keep this happening to me. But my professional background is in accounting and systems implementation. So I have a very process-oriented brain. And so I married the two of them when I created my book, because I like a good process, because repeatable processes are actually how the brain works. And it's how my brain works. And so this pain, or my desire to keep me from experiencing the pain of the divorce that I was going through at that point in time, led me, or I guess got me started on the journey that led to this book.
The name of Kim's book is Yucky, Yummy, Savory, Sweet: Understanding the Flavors of Emotions. And I love this because Kim's a bit of a foodie. And so within her book, she brings a lot of similarities between food and recipes and how we connect with our emotions. And she even talks about one of my favorite pastimes, which is the Food Network. I love nothing more than to sit and watch other people cook because I am horrible at it. So the thought of looking at emotions through that framework, I would love to just hear from you. Where did that concept come from?
And everybody asks this only because it's so unusual. But I read a book. So in my journey to try and figure my emotions out, or try and get some control over them, I read a book called How Emotions Are Made: The Secret Life of the Brain by Lisa Feldman Barrett. And this book talks about our perceptions as ingredients. And she's not the only neuroscientist to refer to them this way. But it really struck me. We have these ingredients that a lot of us don't even think about, the impact of our emotions based on perceptions. and that our emotions filter our perceptions too. Our emotions are the ingredients, and our recipes are our past experiences. Anything that we believe, everything that we've learned, everything that we've experienced. And all of those are the same thing in the brain, really. And when you have a experience, your brain is filtering, like basically saying, hey, look at all this information, all this perceptive information, what you hear, what you smell, all of this comes into your body and your brain is predicting your emotions. But what a lot of people don't realize is that your brain predicts everything. So me looking at you is a prediction of the brain. What I hear is a prediction of the brain. And our emotions help filter even what we see, hear, smell. And that's what we're using. So what we have as far as perceptive input, what we experience can be filtered on our emotions. So these recipes are created and our brain uses them, and then that creates focus. So it's taking that moment to say, hey, let me get out of that automatic that the brain does and look at this situation. And what I say, take a second taste of a situation so that we're trying to capture more of what's really going on, not just what the brain is predicting.
Oh, that's so good. And I want to break that down to kind of bite-sized pieces. I want to spend a little time looking at the ingredients and a little time looking at those recipes. But let's start with the ingredients. So when someone has an event or steps into a situation, how do they where what are the ingredients and how do we begin to engage with them?
So the ingredients really is everything that we're experiencing perceptually. And a lot of people think of that as just those five senses that we've been taught, when actually it is also a sensory system that I'm really trying to get people to be aware of. And that's the sense of how we feel inside. That's called interoception. So, this interoceptive system not only tells us when we're sick or if we're hungry or if we need to drink some water, it also tells us if we're happy or sad. And we can get these two things confused. We can be really hungry and we have low blood sugar, which is making us feel irritable. So, that is going to play a factor in our emotion creation. So when these perceptive signals are coming in from the outside world, we're also using our inside world. This is why we can be hangry. This is why we can be in a bad mood. This is why they've even seen this, that judges, when it gets closer to lunchtime, is going to find people more guilty. If you go in for a traffic offense, try and get after lunch, not before. A great day can play and make an influence if you're going for an interview. So our mood, this overarching, I guess it's like a predisposition, will impact how we use ingredients coming from the outside world. If that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, that's so interesting, and I've seen it in my own life, and I know that I other people have mentioned similar things. For example, I have friends who are professors and who are teachers, and they're grading papers, and they'll say, "You know what? I tend," especially English teachers, where there's a little bit more subjective, not so much in math and physics, but English and things where there are papers that they tend to grade a little bit more leniently when they're having a good day and everything's
Yep.
going well, and they tend to grade not so lenient when things are not so great. So I definitely can see how this interoceptive awareness can play a role in kind of the recipe we put together, so to speak, the end result of what all those ingredients that are coming together for that particular day. How does critical thinking and decision making play into that aspect of interoceptive awareness?
I think it's really the admission that your feelings play a factor. And there's a lot of us, and I include myself, that we think, oh, we're making a very logical decision. We've taken into all of these factors when ultimately it's our emotions. We feel right about a decision, so we do it. And there's a lot of talk right now about AI, right? And what information that you get from AI will have a lot to do with the detail that it's given. If you give a real broad amount of detail, then you're going to get a broader answer. The more detail you give it, the more defined response you're going to get. And so the same too is with our emotions as it leads to decisions. We are filtering our decisions based on our past experiences too. And that these decisions that we make are using our recipes to determine what's right. It's a filtering process. So if we have more defined, more detailed recipes, give our brain more to choose from, we're going to have more refined decision making. And when we understand that we are limited truly by our past, even when it comes to the final decision, we as we give more detail to the aspects of that decision, we're going to make better ones. This is why critical thinking involves taking in information that we might not agree with so that we can look at it with trying to have a dispassionate view. Because if we're very emotional about a topic, a subject, a response, we're going to let those emotions dictate our final decision in a lot of ways. So that's why understanding our relationship with our emotions and critical thinking and decision making is extremely important.
Yes. And with these emotional recipe responses that we have, if someone notices that, as I mentioned, even with the teachers, if someone is noticing, hey, when I feel this way, I tend to respond in a certain way and have this recipe that comes to play. How can they become more intentional? Or maybe what are some strategies for being more intentional in having the response that we want and not just whatever responses our normal go-to?
Great question. And I think the first thing that has to be accepted, hands down, is that feelings aren't facts. And when you truly believe that your feelings aren't always factual, that's going to give you the ability to question them more. So that's step number one, is admitting that is just part of who we are. Because as I want to just go back to the fact that our brain at any given moment is predicting everything around us, and that includes our emotions, and it's based on our past, our beliefs. The second one is learning how to connect to those feelings inside. A lot of us, and I'm including myself especially here because I only recognize now that I've learned this information that I'm better able to recognize feelings inside. And that is, we have had them tamped down, told us, oh, don't feel that way, or you shut down emotions. And so when you shut down this interoceptive system, you shut everything down, right? You're not keenly aware of when you need to eat, or as you would say, when you need to go to sleep and recognize, hey, my body's telling me I need rest. And as you learn how to get comfortable with feeling those feelings, and I use food for that because everybody eats. And I recognize there are people with eating disorders, but still understanding how to taste it better, to use our interoceptive system, because flavor is a combination of multiple sensory systems.
Mhm.
And I like to use the example of vanilla ice cream. You can have 3 different tubs of vanilla ice cream, and each one will have different flavors because they each have unique ingredients to them. They all may have cream, but it might be a higher quality cream. It might be more sugar. It might be more vanilla. And so being able to taste those differences is where I want you to get with your emotions. So if you can learn with food to notice the differences, now we're going to adapt that to learn how to do that with the feelings that come inside, the emotions, and starting to connect to those, because you're still using that interoceptive feeling, because when you taste that one vanilla, you're going to find one that you like more than the other. And it's just noticing the difference of what makes you like that one more versus what makes you like that one less. And we apply that to emotion because that's what emotion is designed to do. Help you to identify what you want, what you don't want, what you want to lean into, what you want to pull away from, and help you to identify what's important to you. And that's really the goal of the book.
Oh, I love that. And the thing that kind of drew me into your topic and your book is one of the things you talk about is that how, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier about how we can misinterpret what we're feeling. And one of the things that you stated was that sad and tired can feel the same.
Mhm.
How can we identify the difference if someone is saying, "I'm so tired," and what's actually is happening that they're experiencing is that they're so sad? How can they identify that difference? What steps can they begin to take to help them become more aware of the emotions underneath that?
Is taking that time to notice what's going on in your body because there's different feelings that can be created. But when you label them similarly, your brain can't distinguish. So notice what's going on around you in that moment. Thinking just, have you gotten enough sleep? Is this tiredness or is this sadness? What would be making me sad? One of the things I do in the book is look at and examine for yourself, like what has to happen to make you feel a certain emotion? What are the ingredients to that emotion? And while you may say, I'm not really feeling tired, I am feeling sad, but what is making you feel sad? Because you might discover that that isn't really what you're feeling. You're just disappointed, or you're just maybe a little melancholy because it's an overarching mood that you're in. Because while you may have gotten enough sleep last night, maybe you're coming off of caffeine or something. There's been a change to your diet, and just diving into the feeling. Because even with my husband, he'll probably get mad at me for sharing this. Every once in a while, I'll say, "Well, how do you feel about that?" And he's, "I don't know." And I'll just say, "What's going on? What do you feel in your body?" And it's just like when you start to question your body, it answers back. And you'd be surprised once you start to build up that relationship, it's amazing. But what's even more amazing is that you've got the clarity to have those conversations, not just with yourself, but with others. And you develop a closer connection to yourself, which then helps you to have a closer connection with others. So, all in all, it's just a great system to develop.
Yes, and I think as a parent, when I'm hearing you talk about this, the thing that comes to mind is how important is this for parents to begin to not only model this in some ways with their children, but also to help lead them in their own level of being more aware of their emotions.
I would say extremely important. And I've given a couple of examples of this before, and I'm happy to share them again. But if everyone's heard me before, they may have heard these stories because I think they both are very strong. And one was a video I saw of a little girl crying, and her dad looked at her and said, "Why are you sad? Why are you crying?" He equated crying with sad. And she's, "I don't know." And he's just continuing to record her. And she finally says, "I'm just going to go get something to eat and watch my favorite TV show." So he recorded her later and she's eating in front of the TV. And he's like, "How you doing?" And she's, "Oh, I'm fine now." That little girl was not sad. She was hungry, but she didn't understand to take that moment to really investigate what was going on. But what's unfortunate that I didn't see in this video, and maybe it was done afterwards, was that it was explained to her. So then at that point in time, you weren't really sad, were you? You were hungry. Your body needed sugar, so it gave you that feeling, and you didn't know what to do with it, so you cried. That would have been a great moment for her to learn that distinction, and so that in the future she could go, am I hungry or am I sad? Like, what's going on? Another example was a young girl that lost her tooth. and she was crying. I saw her in a bathroom. She was a friend's daughter, and she was crying, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm losing my tooth." And it was just hanging by a string, so we got rid of it, but there was some blood. It turns out that she thought if she saw blood, it equaled pain. And when I explained to her that blood doesn't always equal pain, she was like, "Oh, okay." Because even pain is a prediction of the brain.
Mhm.
And that gave her that ability for her to distinguish that so that in the future, if she saw blood, she might not feel pain. It wasn't a given, in other words. So this is just two examples of how giving the child that information, but we have to have it ourselves, true, right? Like we need to start practicing in ourselves and using that interoceptive awareness or developing it to be a chef in our own life. And when I say that, it's a chef can distinguish a dish, they can just taste it and know the difference. But that usually comes with some work and some experience. Well, maybe other people might not reach everyone else's level of it. We can always increase our awareness, our ability to taste our emotions and distinguish the flavors of what we're feeling. We're always, while we may not be able to distinguish our feelings, just like there's different chefs who can have a better sense of flavor, we can always develop it to the best of our ability. And anything that's increased is better for us.
Yes, there's such a high level of personal leadership involved with this, and really just that level of allowing yourself to be constantly self-evaluating, looking at not judging your feelings or emotions, but just evaluating them to see what's going on in the moment, what are the emotions I'm feeling. Even one of the things that you as you were sharing those two stories that came to mind is just the expansion of our vocabulary of feelings. So not just am I sad, for example, or I'm crying, so I must be sad, what are the other possibilities that are out there? Putting all of the emotional or even physical or social or whatever it is, possibilities on the table to see what is at the root of the recipe that we're getting, the end result that we're seeing that's coming forward. I know what as we talk about just with parents, but this could also apply to leaders or anyone who is in any type of leadership type role. When you are leading someone, sometimes it feels more risky to even be open with your emotions. How, because you're not wanting to look like you don't have it together. You're not looking, you want to make sure that you're well presented and that your emotions aren't seeming to be scattered. How can we build that level of vulnerability and emotional vulnerability needed for us to build deeper relationships and to make having these emotions feel more normal?
I think that word vulnerability, and maybe I'm wrong here, and you can tell me after I comment, to take that out
Mhm.
and just to say more curious.
I like
And
that.
when yeah, because if you are in a conversation with someone, and remember, your brain is predicting even what they say.
Mhm.
And especially as a leader, listening is so important. And when we ask for clarification or say, "This is what I heard," or just ask more questions to get more detail, because just like we're not used to getting necessarily detail about our emotion, but the other people might not have detail in theirs. And so what they share with you might not be detailed enough. So by asking, say, "Can you give me a little bit more about what you're talking about? Can I get some more detail behind what this you're saying or what you're sharing with me?" Then that's going to encourage them to look a little bit deeper inside of them, which might reveal that, oh, wait, when I look at the detail, it's not as big of a deal as I thought. Because why? They're predicting too. And that is the type of, I think, just self realization and curiosity that other people are in the exact same boat or you as you are. And then giving them that space to look deeper into what they're thinking or feeling or noticing or hearing or whatever it is. The other piece of that is your communication needs to be crystal clear too. And as a leader, details matter. And to never assume that people understand that, and to never assume that people's reactions are how they appear either. Because I know people like to say that they can read a face and that they know exactly what they're thinking or feeling, but we don't. Because everybody's living, call it your own private Idaho, but everyone's world exists inside of their head. And people forever have mistaken me as being mad when I just have that kind of face. Or we don't know what else they're thinking about at that moment. So if we let people's expressions guide our feelings, which then guide our communication, we might get ourselves in a bit of a pickle. So those are some things that immediately come to mind.
That's so true. And you're right. Some people just have different facial expressions that are normal go-to facial expression, and it doesn't necessarily convey their emotions. It's just their natural facial expression. So I think that's such great wisdom, especially for those in leadership who may be more attuned to some of those external factors and less curious, to open ourselves up to being more curious and asking those questions so that we can help guide and open up the opportunities for people to share what it is that they're feeling. We've been chatting with author Kim Korte. She is the author of the book Yucky, Yummy, Savory, Sweet: Understanding the Flavors of Emotions. And Kim, I want to give you an opportunity to share with everyone where they can get a copy of your book and how they can connect with you.
They can get a copy of my book on Amazon.com. Also, if you want to connect with me, you can reach me at kimkorte.com, KIMKORTE.com. Also, I just started a podcast. I don't know when this is going to be recorded, but I'm on number 4 as of this recording, and it's called Flavors of Emotions. And I delve into these topics on that also, on my podcast.
Excellent. And so we'll link to Kim's website as well as to her book, as well as to how you can connect to her on social media and get connected up with her podcast. So you can also learn how to better manage your emotions and experience some of the different flavors that are available to you. Until next time, everyone, live fully, love boldly, and rest intentionally.